Hey guys, it's Miss Barber again, and today this video is primarily a pre-algebra video, but it does have some applications for other math classes because what we're going to talk about today is order of operations. Now, it seems really simple, and we have a lot of things like Desmos that will do order of operations for us now, but every now and again you get caught without a calculator, or you have a quiz or a test or something that says without your calculator do this work. So order of operations is important because if we don't follow order of operations, we can get an answer that is very, very different from what we intended. What I'm going to do is I'm going to review what order of operations are, and then we're going to do some examples, and then I'm going to leave you a few examples to do. And I'm going to remind you again that once you see and copy down the examples, to pause the video, work the examples, and then come back, because what I'm going to do is then I'm going to show you how to work them, okay? So it kind of give you a chance, like if we were in class, I'd put it up on the board, give you 5 minutes, and then we'd have somebody come up from class and work it. That's kind of how we're going to do this, except I'm just going to say, you know what, guys, pause the video. I don't need 5 minutes of dead space on YouTube. That's just, that doesn't work real well. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my page so you can see what we're doing. We're going to talk about order of operations. Now, y'all know what order of operations is. At first you're like, no, I don't. Ms. B, what are you talking about? Order of operations is the order that we do things, the order we do the mathematics. Now, for when I was growing up, it was PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. We always work left to right. But as the years have gone, it's kind of grown a little. And for those of you that were in my class, we got this really cool, I found this really cool thing online, and we put it in our notebooks. And it's a lot bigger. The way my document camera is, you can only see one side at a time. I found this on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'll have to go back and see where it came from. But it's a pretty cool little picture thing here we could use. And why does it say G instead of P? GEMDAS. G-E-M-D-A-S. Well, instead of parentheses, we used grouping. Does it matter? No. In terms of parentheses or grouping. Because if you think parentheses, you're just thinking these guys, parentheses. But if I say grouping, I'm talking about parentheses, I'm talking about the funny looking brackets, I'm talking about square roots, all kinds of different possible things that it could be. And that's why we've moved more towards the groupings instead of the parentheses. But we got to do parentheses. What does the E stand for? E stands for exponents. So any number with an exponent, this little guy right up there, that little extra number there, okay? Now, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. Those are always the hardest ones to remember. Because we see multiply written before divide and add written before subtract, some people tend to think we do all the multiplication and then we do all the division. Or we do all the addition and then we do all the subtraction. And that's not how it works. We do it as we come to it, working left to right. That's why I always put my little arrow here to remind me left to right. So we can take a big, complex, nasty looking problem that's got all kinds of strange things in it. It's got a division bar, it's got exponents, it's got a square root, it's got an absolute value. And if we take it in little pieces, it's not that bad. So let's look at an example here. I lost my page in my notebook, so I gotta go back. Okay, found it, all right. So let's start out pretty easy. I've got 9 squared plus 28 divided by 4 minus the absolute value of negative 18. Okay? So if we follow our order of operations, do we have a grouping in this? Well, absolute value is actually counted as a grouping. So I'm going to deal with this piece first. I'm going to write down everything else the same because I didn't change anything. Well, what's the absolute value of negative 18? How many steps from 0 did you have to take to get to negative 18? You had to take 18 steps. from 0 to get to negative 18. The positive and the negative is your direction on the number line. The number itself is how many steps you take. So when we're doing absolute value, as a reminder, absolute value is how many steps away from 0 did you take? Not the direction you went, but the steps you took. Now, the next question is, why did that minus stay there if I took 18 steps? Why is there still a negative in front of it? If we look at the problem above it, there's a negative there, and that comes straight down. So now we've settled this part. We've dealt with this part. Let's look at our problem again. We have 9 squared plus 28 divided by 4 minus 18. Well, I don't have any more groupings, but I do have an exponent. Well, what does 9 squared mean? 9 squared means 9 times 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So that sign change. I write everything else down just the way it was before. So now I've done my grouping. I've done my exponent. Do I have any multiplying or dividing? Well, let's look. Right here, I have a division problem. 28 divided by 4 is 7. So this little piece right here gets replaced with 7. At this point, do I have any groupings? No. Do I have any exponents? No. Do I have any more multiplying or dividing? No. At this point, it's just straight up adding and subtracting. 81 plus 7 is 88. 88 minus 18. Okay, let's see. 88 minus 18, 8 minus 8 is 0. 8 minus 1 is 7. So my final answer is 70. Now, if I had messed up one little piece of that, it would have changed the whole thing. That's why order of operations is so careful. It's so important. Now, that's not too bad. I didn't have too complicated a thing going on there. So let's look at another one. See if we can make it a little more complicated. Still is easy if you follow your procedures. And part of what I'm going to do in showing you all this is I want you to watch how I write it and what I do as I do each problem. Work habits are super, super, super important. So part of what I'm teaching is those work habits as we go. Something I want you to work on. Okay, so my next problem is 48 divided by the quantity 2 to the 5th minus 29, there's my parentheses, plus 6 squared. Over here to the side, I'm going to write GEMDAS, a reminder of what my order of operations are. First things first, do I have groupings? I sure do. Right here, I have a grouping. That's a pretty complicated grouping because I have more than one thing in there. Well, within that grouping, do I have more groupings? No, but I do have an exponent. So that's how I decide what I deal with first. I'm going to deal with this piece right here. Write everything else down. 2 to the 5th power. Does that mean 2 times 5? Or does that mean I say 2 times 2 till I've done it 5 times? 2 to the 5th means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay? So let's see, that's 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Okay. Then I write down everything else that was there. Okay. Now, have I cleared everything out of my groupings? Well, let's look at my grouping. Is there one number or more than one number in my grouping? There's still more than one number in my grouping. So what I have to do is I have to sit and I have to look inside that grouping and figure out what I still need to do. Well, inside the grouping, it very plainly says 32 minus 29. I can do that. 32 minus 29 is 3. So now I can replace this with 3. 48 divided by 3 plus 6 squared. Now, because I did the last operation in that grouping, I can make that grouping disappear and I can mark off that I have all my groupings cleared out. Well, the next thing according to my order of operations is exponents. Well, let's look. Do I have an exponent here? I sure do. Right here is my exponent. So now I got to do 6 squared. And just like 2 to the 5th was 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 6 squared is 6 times 6. Well, we know what 6 times 6 is. That's 36. So now I have 48 divided by 3 plus 36. Okay. Do I have any more exponents left? No, I don't. Okay. So now I can mark that off. Next step is multiplying and dividing from left to right. Well, let's look. Let's start here. Let's read the problem to ourselves. 48 divided by 3 plus 36. Oh, right there's a division. 48 divided by 3. Well, let's see. 3 goes into 4 once with 1 left over. 3 goes into 18. 3 times 6 is 18. Okay. Taxing my memory. I don't want to pull up my calculator today. Plus 36. So we're still trying to figure out what this equals. Well, have I cleared out all my multiplying and dividing now? I have. So now we go to adding and subtracting. 16 plus 36. Let's see. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So my final answer is 52. There are all kinds of places this could have gone wrong. You could have done 2 minus 29 before you took it to the 5th power, and that would have changed everything. You could have done 48 divided by 32. Yeah, that would have changed everything. So following the order is super, super, super important. Okay, so let's look at our next one. So let's go the quantity 9 minus 2, close the parentheses, squared, minus absolute value of 3 minus 17 minus 4. So I'm going to write my reminder to the side. Grouping, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Now let's look at what it's actually asking me to do. Well, for groupings, I actually have 2 sets. I have one grouping here and one grouping here. Now we always work left to right, so that's what I'm going to deal with first. I'm going to deal with this one first. Inside my grouping, it says 9 minus 2. Well, 9 minus 2 is 7. Write everything else exactly the way it looks. The square outside, the absolute value of 3 minus 17 minus 4. So you don't change anything other than that one little piece, because that's where errors can happen, guys, is you've got to be super careful when you write this stuff down. So have I cleared out my groupings? Well, right here, I still have a grouping. So let's look at that. If I didn't have the parentheses around it, the absolute values around it, I'd just be doing 3 minus 17. Well, what is 3 minus 17? 3 minus 17 is negative 14. Now, when I wrote this down again, does anybody notice what I did right here? It's written a little differently from what's above it, but that's okay, because parentheses 7, parentheses squared, is saying whatever's inside that parentheses has to be written down twice. So this says 7 squared, and this says 7 squared. The only time we wouldn't take the parentheses away is if that happened to be a negative number. So now let's look. Have I cleared out all my groupings? Well, have I done what absolute value of negative 14 actually means? Not yet, so that's going to be my next step, is to clear this out right here. So I have 7 squared minus the absolute value of negative 14. Well, negative 14 is 14 steps from 0. So that's what's changed. Now have I cleared out all my groupings? I have, so I can mark that off. Do I have any exponents now? I do right here. I've got 7 squared. So now I'm going to take that 7 squared. I'm going to figure out what it is. Well, 7 squared means 7 times 7, which is 49. All right, so now have I cleared out my exponents? I've cleared out my exponents. Do I have any multiplying or dividing here? I don't. I just have 49 minus 14 minus 4. Let's see, 49 minus 14. 9 minus 4 is 5. 4 minus 1 is 3. So now I have 35 minus 4 because I did that part. 35 minus 4 is 31, and I'm done. It doesn't matter how complicated it gets. You still need to follow our basic mechanics here. Okay, so let's try one more example before I let you loose with a few. Okay, now I'm gonna pull out the F word. I'm gonna do a fraction. I know how much y'all love fractions. When we're in my classroom, when we're in our classroom, when I say the F word, everybody cringes because they know I'm gonna talk about fractions. And I know fractions scare you, but that's okay. My husband's a math teacher too, and he says it all the time. Fractions are math too. Fractions need friends just like everybody else. Now, when we have order of operations, when we have a fraction, sometimes it looks super, super scary. But if you take it in small chunks, it's not as scary as it looks. So let me give you our fraction here. I have 18 minus 4 squared plus 25 over 28 minus 5 squared. Now what I'm going to tell you to do is we're going to approach this in 2 parts. We're actually going to have to do our order of operations 2 times. Okay? 1 time for the top and 1 time for the bottom. So for right now, I'm going to cover up that bottom because I don't want to see it. I don't want to mess with it. 1 piece at a time is all I want to deal with. So I'm going to look at this top. Do I have groupings? No, I don't have groupings, so I can take that out. Okay. Do I have exponents? I sure do, right here. So what is 4 squared? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. So 4 squared gets replaced with 16. Now, I'm not worried about the bottom yet. I'm going to leave some space in my problem, but I'm not going to worry about it. Now let's look. Have I cleared out all my exponents? I sure have. Do I have any multiplying or dividing left here? Don't have that. But I do have some adding and subtracting. Now, what is 18 minus 16? Well, 18 minus 16 is 2. And then I have the plus 25 on the end. Well, what's 2 plus 25? 2 plus 25 is 27. So have I finished off my top now? I sure have. But I still have to deal with my bottom. So now I'm going to cover up the top and I'm just going to deal with the bottom. 28 minus 5 squared. No groupings, but I do have an exponent, so I got to deal with that first. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. Now I have 28 minus 25. Well, 28 minus 25 is 3. Well, that's the end. That just kind of carries down with everything. So now that I've dealt with the top and the bottom, I look at what I have, and I have 27 divided by 3. Well, what's 27 divided by 3? See, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. All right, so 9 times 3 is 27. So 27 divided by 3 is 9, and we have our answer. And as for big and scary and everything else as this problem is, it wasn't so bad when it came to our answer. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down 2 problems that I want you to try without me. After you've copied them down on your paper, well, after I write them down, I want you to pause the video, get out a piece of paper, and try them for yourselves, okay? After you have tried them for yourselves, I want you to start the video back up, and I want you to check your work against my work. So let's see what our problems are going to be today. We'll have 24 minus the quantity 4 squared minus 3 plus the absolute value of negative 15. And then we're going to have 4 squared minus 6 divided by 3 plus 6, all divided by 11 minus 25 divided by 5. Okay, let me double check my problem here, make sure I read it right. Oh, wait a minute, that's wrong. This should be a minus 6 right here. I'm so sorry. So this should be 4 squared minus 6 divided by 3 minus 6 divided by 11 plus 25 divided by 5. So take a minute, write this down, then pause the video. Try and take about 5 minutes to figure out what you have. When you've worked both problems, go ahead and start the video again, and so you can see the solutions. Let me get them transferred to another place so I can do them again. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's take the first one. I'm going to write here beside it my order of operations. Grouping, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. I'm going to approach my problem. First things first. Groupings. Have a grouping here, I have a grouping here. I always work left to right, so I'm going to work on this one first. Copy down everything I don't change. Well, if I look at this grouping, it says 4 squared minus 3. Well, within this grouping, I have an exponent, and that should be done first. 4 squared is 16, minus 3 plus the absolute value of negative 15. Well, have I finished out my grouping here yet? I haven't, so now I do need to do 16 minus 3. So now I have 24 minus, well, 16 minus 3 is 13, plus the absolute value of negative 15. One grouping's done, the other grouping isn't. So now let's look at this, the absolute value of negative 15. How many steps away from 0 is negative 15? Well, negative 15 is 15 steps from 0. Make sure I copy everything right. So now let's look. Do I have any? I've gotten rid of my groupings. Don't have any exponents here. Don't have any multiplying and dividing, so all I have to do is add and subtract. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. 24 minus 13. Oh, gracious. Excuse me just a minute, guys. Oh, I am so sorry. Here we go. Let's try this again. So 24 minus 13, that's 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, so that's 11 plus 15. 11 plus 15 is 26. So now I'm done. Did you follow your order of operations? Did you make sure you cleared out one set of groupings before you step to the next? When you were in your groupings, did you follow through and do your order of operations inside your groupings as well? Those are all questions you should be asking if your answer doesn't match mine and if your work doesn't match mine. Okay, so now let's look at our last example of the day. Okay, last one I wanted you to work. Fraction, everybody's favorite. I'm going to deal with the top and then I'm going to deal with the bottom. And I'm going to write my reminder here of what my order of operations are. Groupings, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. I'm going to start just with the top, so I'm going to cover up the bottom. 4 squared minus 6 divided by 3 minus 6. Well, right here is an exponent because it didn't have groupings, but 4 squared is 16. 16 minus 6 divided by 3 minus 6 over something, and we don't know what our something is yet because we're ignoring it right now. We're just dealing with the top. So now let's look. Don't have any groupings, don't have any exponents, but right here, I have division. I have division. So that's what I'm going to deal with next. So I have 16 minus 6 divided by 3 is 2 minus 6. And it's all divided by something. So now let's look. 16 minus 2 is 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. So now I've finished the top. Once the top's finished, let's go look at the bottom. On the bottom, I have 11 minus 25 divided by 5. Well, I don't have groupings, don't have exponents, but I do have division right here. So I've got 11 minus something. Well, 25 divided by 5 is 5, one of those cool facts. Now I got to do 11 minus 5. 11 minus 5 is 6. Now, I carry that through because I'm done. Now let's look at this very bottom. My final answer is 8 divided by 6. But is that in its simplest form? No, it's not, because 8 and 6 are both even numbers, so they can both be divided by 2. Now, is this a correct answer? Yes. But is this in its simplest form? No, it's not. And the big thing is, for a lot of things that we do, we always want our answer in simplest form. So now I got to look at this. Is there a number that goes into both 8 and 6? Well, because 8 and 6 are both even, they both can be divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now, there's not a number that goes into both 4 and 3, so I'm done. Now, order of operations is the same thing as some other things. You can go on the internet, you can go to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you're going to use and type in order of operations worksheets, and it will pop up a huge collection of them. If you're lucky, they'll give you answer keys too. But the best way to get good at this is to practice. Always remember, groupings first, then exponents. Multiplying and dividing works left to right. Adding and subtracting works left to right. So always take each piece at a time, okay? Good luck, have fun practicing, and I'll see you next time.